At 6:41 in the morning, something unusual appeared on military radar systems across 3 continents. It was not a confirmed missile launch, not yet, but it was enough to trigger a level of concern that had not been seen in decades. Within minutes, classified communication channels activated. Within hours, entire nations would begin preparing for something no one wanted to name: a global nuclear exchange. And this is the story of the last 24 hours before the world ended. The first anomaly. At first, it looked like a technical error, a weak signal, a distortion in satellite tracking systems over the North Pacific. Operators assumed it was noise. It wasn't. By 6:12, 2 more detection systems confirmed the same anomaly. Still, no alarms were triggered, because false alarms had happened before, too many times. But this time, the pattern was different, too structured, too deliberate. Confusion in the system. By 8 o'clock, military command centers across multiple nations were awake. Screens filled with live global maps. Red zones began to flicker and disappear, then reappear somewhere else. There was no confirmed launch, but there was movement. Something was happening under the silence. Intelligence agencies began exchanging encrypted messages at maximum priority. Words like exercise and malfunction were still being used, but nobody believed them anymore. The world starts to feel it. At 10 o'clock, something changed outside the military world. Stock markets hesitated. Air traffic slowed. Emergency protocols were quietly prepared in major cities. People did not know why, but they felt it. A tension in the air that could not be explained. In hospitals, in schools, in offices, conversations became shorter. Phones were checked more often, as if everyone was waiting for the same unknown message. Systemic collapse begins. By noon, financial systems began to react, not to facts, to fear. Trillions of dollars moved within seconds. Markets dipped sharply, recovered, then dipped again. Governments attempted reassurance, but reassurance requires certainty, and there was none. At 12:47, several international emergency protocols were quietly activated, not announced, just activated. Maximum military readiness. At 1400, military posture shifted globally. Submarines disappeared from tracking systems. Air forces launched continuous patrol rotations. Underground facilities sealed non-essential entry points. Missile silos were checked, then checked again. There was still no confirmed target, but readiness is not about certainty. It is about survival. And survival had become the only objective. Diplomacy breaks down. At 1600, the last high-level diplomatic attempts took place. Emergency channels remained open, but responses became slower, then stopped. Leaders were no longer negotiating. They were calculating time. Minutes mattered more than agreements. Every system was now operating under the assumption that misunderstanding could be fatal, and that someone, somewhere, had already made a decision. Civilians began to understand. At 1800, it was no longer hidden. Emergency alerts began to appear on public systems. Transportation hubs became overcrowded. Highways froze. People stood on rooftops, watching the sky. Not because they expected to see something, but because they didn't know what else to do. The world was still functioning, but it no longer felt alive. The point of no return. At 2000, automated defense systems entered final protocols. Human approval was no longer required for certain actions. This was the moment designed decades ago to prevent hesitation, to ensure response, to remove doubt from decisions that came too late. Across continents, hidden systems awakened, silent, precise, unstoppable. The last broadcasts. At 2200, emergency broadcasts began, not all at once, not coordinated, just fragments. Messages from governments, from military channels, from broken communication systems. Some were calm, some were not. Some simply repeated instructions that no longer mattered. In many places, television screens showed static. In others, nothing at all. The sky changes. At 23:30, witnesses reported something unusual. The sky began to shift in color, not naturally, not gradually. It looked artificial. Red tones appeared near the horizon, then green, then a deep, unnatural darkness that swallowed light. Radar systems became unstable, satellite feeds degraded. The world was still intact, but it no longer felt connected. The end? At exactly midnight, every monitoring station on Earth registered the same thing: a sudden spike in energy signatures, followed by silence. No confirmation, no clarity, only absence. Some systems went offline instantly. Others continued recording meaning